sent to council members last week has been around since March at least. The lobbyist who authored it has attended more than one ad hoc committee meeting over the course of the last several months. The ideas, as has been mentioned, aren't new, have been considered, some have been adopted. And I would mention that what we saw last week by email last Thursday is patently violating state law, and that it would sidetrack property tax money directly for a purpose and have the trustee sidetrack the money before it got to Metro General Fund. So I'm guessing part of the reason why it's not proposed yet is because the current draft would violate state law. 133 is ready to move forward. We need to, this has been the time for a couple months when we were going to move it forward when we got done with the budget process. It needs to go forward and not get delayed for ideas that have been around for several months.
Councilman Glover.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Well, I think I'm right back to the same question. If they're not listening or they're not going to hear it until July 21st, I don't even think a deferral for one meeting would be really necessary, because it's actually not going to come back to us until the August public hearing. Did I misunderstand that?
That's correct. It won't come back here until second reading, which is the first meeting in August.
Okay, and so therefore, Mr. Jameson, let me make sure I'm clear here. This will not be on our agenda at the next meeting in July.
Yeah, it won't, because you got to go back to planning. So you will not have it on July 19th.
Right. So if we vote for Council Lady Allen's to re-refer it back to planning, then it will not be on the next meeting. So, okay. So by deferring one meeting really doesn't accomplish anything. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Councilman Davis. Anthony.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Yeah, just reiterating, please don't defer this. We've been working really hard on it. I look forward to seeing Councilmember Wiener's ordinance or whatever she's working on, but I think this needs to keep moving forward, so please defeat the deferral. Thanks.
Councilor Murphy.
It's a little late, so help me through this motion. I'm moving the deferral motion to the table.
You can. There's only one other person who wants to speak before you, though. So I would, let's just, if Councilman Bednay promises to be short, let's skip the.
Maybe we should do my motion instead.
You promise to be brief, Councilman Bednay? There you go.
I was going to make a long speech, but I'll just tell you this. My commitment to the ad hoc committee has been to create an environment where people can come in and put together legislation that is comprehensive, that is inclusive of everybody. They have been coming and working at these meetings for months. To defer this meeting when we had already agreed to bring it to a vote today, it's, with all due respect, it's disrespectful. People have worked really hard, talked to lots of people, gave up lots of hours to put this thing together. There's no need to defer this legislation. The other one can catch up, but let's just vote on this thing and let's just move it forward out of respect for the people who have been working really hard for months, almost a year, on trying to put something together that is comprehensive.
Thank you, Councilman. Motion to defer. All in favor? Opposed? No. Motion fails. Councilman Roten? No, she withdrew her motion to table. The motion to table was withdrawn. The motion to defer failed. We are now on, we're back to you, Council Lady Allen, on your motion to approve on first reading and re-refer to you substituted already, to adopt the substitute on first reading and re-refer to the Planning Commission. No one seeking recognition. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Councilman Davis, do you have a, I have on my agenda something here for you. No? Thank you. That brings us to bill on second reading, Bill 2000. I'm sorry?
For Freeman.
Oh, sorry. BL 2016-318, Councilman Freeman, an ordinance to amend Title 17 of the Metro Code of Laws, the zoning ordinance of the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County by changing from RS10 to R10 zoning for property located at 2913 Simmons Avenue at the northwest corner of Simmons Avenue and Tanksley Avenue, all of which is described herein. Councilman Freeman.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Per the request of the requester, he has requested that we
Roll with it, man. Roll
to defer indefinitely to ensure that we have enough community support for their request. So I would request that we defer this indefinitely.
There is motion to defer indefinitely. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2016-188, Councilman Elrod Cooper and others, amends the Metro Code regarding the Department of Public Works reporting requirements. Councilman Elrod.
Committee reports, Public Works recommended for deferral until the first meeting in November. And I will make that motion very quickly. ITS passed out to the committee some how they're putting together project lists and request that from Keith Durbin. Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor.
Moved and properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2016-2003, Council Lady Roberts. Changes 0.59 acres from R6 to SP zoning for properties located at 122 and 124 Osceola Avenue to permit up to 8 residential units. Council Lady Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I'd like to move for approval.
Moved and properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Bill 2016-222, Council Lady Gilmore, amends the Metro Code to revise the duration of required rabies vaccination for dogs, the related labeling of immunity periods, and to require the notice of license expiration and provision of low-cost rabies vaccine clinics by the Metro Public Health Department. Council Lady Gilmore.
Thank you. Thank you, Vice Mayor. The Health and Hospitals Committee approved 5-4, 0 against, and was recommended for approval. And I would like to move for approval with a brief explanation.
Floor is yours.
Yes, I would like to move the substitute.
There is a substitute. There's a motion to substitute. It's properly seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. You're on your substitute.
All right. Thank you so much. I just wanted to thank the constituent that worked really hard on this, Mr. Meyer. He brought this to us, and it's essentially what this bill does. I also want to thank Mr. Jameson for his time offering up the legal advice, as well as Mr. Sharp from the Health Department. Essentially what this bill does is allow those of us who have animals to get our rabies shots for our little pooches every 3 years versus every year after they've had their initial booster shot. So that's what it does. I think it's a good thing. It saves the taxpayers money, but it's only for those offices that are connected with the Metro Health Department. And I would ask Mr. Jameson, did I leave anything out? Because it's really late at night. Okay, so I just wanted to thank everyone. I wanted to thank all the co-sponsors, Councilmember Freeman, Councilmember Roberts, and Councilmember Johnson. Thank you so much. And once again, I renew my motion. Thank you, Vice Mayor, for indulging me.
Moved and properly seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Bill 2016-257, Councilman Sledge and Allen, amends the Metro Code regarding noncompliance with Title 16 and the penalties therefore. Councilman Sledge.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Committee reports, please.
Councilman Coleman.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. The Codes, Performance, Market, and Fair Committee met. We discussed Bill 257, and there were 3 amendments to it. Vice Mayor, after a long debate, we decided to vote 5-4, none against, defer for 2 meetings.
Councilman Sledge.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. So I would defer to the first meeting in August, please.
Moved and properly seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. BL 2016-301, Council Lady Allen and Pardue, approves an agreement between the Nashville Fire Department and Vanderbilt University Medical Center for clinical training of Vanderbilt residents. Council Lady Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Committee reports, please.
Councilman Pardue.
Public Safety voted 5-0 for.
Thank you, Councilman. Council Lady Allen.
Move for approval.
Moved and properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2016-302, Pridemore, Allen, and Elrod grants a franchise to Tennessee Backhaul Networks, LLC to construct, operate, and maintain a telecommunications system within within Metro Nashville. Councilman Pridemore.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I think due to a requirement that there had to be a joint meeting, that we wanted to defer this two meetings.
Motion to defer 2 meetings. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2016-303. O'Connell, Allen, and Elrod abandons an existing sewer main and easement and accepts a new sewer main for property located at 12th Avenue North and Broadway. Councilman O'Connell.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Committee reports, please.
Lady Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Planning recommended 13 in favor, 0 against.
Councilman Elrod.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Public Works recommend for approval, 9 in favor, 0 against. And I just want to say that it's good for reference now. The air conditioner cuts out at 11:30, it appears. So thank you.
Councilman O'Connell.
I will move approval, please.
Moved and properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2016-190. Councilman Scott Davis. Hang with me, guys. Hang with me. Changes 0.20 acres from SP to R6 zoning for property located at 715 Stockwell Street. Councilman Davis.
Little help here. I'm past my bedtime. Community reports, please.
Council Lady Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Planning recommended as approved, as substituted, 14 in favor, 0 against.
Councilman Davis.
I would like to move to substitute. Right, Ms. Jameson? I'd like to move to substitute for approval, please.
There's a motion to substitute. It's properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. You're on your bill as substituted.
I'd like to move the bill as substituted.
Is there...
I substituted so I could have planning approval. I got it. Oh, cool. We're good to go.
My understanding, ladies and gentlemen, is that the substitute resulted in Planning Department approval of the legislation. Thank you, Councilman Davis. Council, anything further, Councilman?
It passed. Are we good?
Councilman Johnson, Mina Johnson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I commended Councilman Scott Davis' work on this particular bill because it was originally disapproved by Planning Commission 6 months ago. And since then, he did everything he said he would do and refer back to Planning Commission, and now this time they got blessing from the Planning Commission. So I just wanted to commend his hard work, and I really appreciate it. And I'm very comfortable supporting this bill as substituted.
Thank you, Council Lady. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2016-223. Councilman Pridemore amends the Metro Code to establish a speed limit at major construction and demolition sites and to provide appropriate signage. Councilman Pridemore.
With all committees approving, I move for final approval.
Moved and properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Substitute Bill 2016-234. Bedney, Dowell, and others amends the Metro Code to allow additional information requirements and to add Metro Zoning Code compliance. Councilman Bedney.
I'd like to move the substitute.
So motion to substitute. Properly seconded. All in favor of the substitute? You do need to suspend the rules, Councilman.
At the last meeting, I promised you guys that I was going to review this legislation, and if you guys will vote support it, that I will bring a better legislation, and that's what this is the one that was endorsed by the Health Department as taking care of the issues they had. So I'm asking for suspension of the rules so I can follow up on what I promised to you on second reading.
Is there an objection to the suspension of the rules? Councilman Schulman. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I was going to ask for the explanation of why the suspension, but I think he's made it clear, and that's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
There's a motion to without objection, we'll address your substitute. And there's a motion and a second. All in favor? Opposed? You're on your substitute.
Thank you. I think we have a committee report from Councilor Lady Gilmore.
Councilor Gilmore.
We do. The Health, Hospitals, and Social Services Committee approved 5 for and 0 against, and was recommended for approval.
Thank you, Council Lady. Well, thank you all. I know you love all those emails you've been getting, and I'm sure they'll say some thank you to you as well. At this point, I'd like to ask Mr. Jameson to walk us through what this legislation does and also what it doesn't do. So, Mr. Jameson.
Because the original substitute did two primary things. It allowed the health director in his discretion to request additional information from facilities requesting construction permits that were potential air pollutant contributors. The second and more significant thing that it does is require zoning code compliance of the facility. The second substitute slightly tweaks that second provision by making clear that if you are a legal non-conforming use, an existing facility, you are grandfathered in. That is state law regardless, but it was stated here for assurance. In other words, if you're an existing facility and you need to expand your factory, you would not be denied a permit by virtue of being in a non-compliant zoning district.
Isn't he great? Thank you, Mr. Jameson. Yes, should I go on?
You've got 3 minutes and 44 seconds, but not much more.
Okay. So I'm very proud of this process. I know that it's a pain to you guys, but I take it I like to hold on, to follow up with what I promised. I promised you guys I was going to work on it and try to talk to as many people as I did. I know there were some concerns on the impact on business. I talked to, for example, Maripeth Teague with the Vanderbilt University. They had a power unit in their building, and so they were concerned about expanding that. And the first legislation was of concern to them, but after we took care of the issues they had, they were fine with the last version. They even sent that legislation around to other colleges, and they were all fine with it. Really what the legislation does is what I said before. It's about local control. It is about air quality close to where people live. I know they are going to tell you that this is not going to move the needle, but if you're next to something, that's a problem. I'll give you an example. In my district, I got a phone call from this guy that had a neighbor that put a workshop. He was painting cars in his garage, and the air quality on this guy's house was impacted by the guy next door painting cars illegally. What happens next to you has a direct impact in what happens to you. It may not move the needle Nashville-wise as much, but it will have an impact in the people that live immediately around it. That's why it is so important to empower people to have a say. And I trust Nashvillians. I've seen this before. People have approved things that some of you thought that may not approve. If we ask people, if we give them an opportunity to speak up and to say how they feel about something, they'll be honest and they'll tell you if it's a good use or it's not a good use. So what I'm asking you is to give power back to the people, to give power back to the people from Jolton, from Cane Ridge, and from your communities, because if you have a gas line going through your area, at some point, somebody's going to want to put a gas compression station, and you're going to wish that you had an opportunity to give your residents the power to have a say about it. So I'm asking for your support. Thank you very much. Was that short enough?
Almost.
Thank you.
Councilman Swope.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'm going to request a roll call vote on this.
Roll call vote requires, on third reading it does not, you're right. Councilman Glover.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. All right, Mr. Jameson, I need some clarification on this. I'm not an attorney, but you said something that says in his discretion, talking about the Director of Health. Is that still in this bill and in his discretion? So what does this actually do?
Director, if he has a facility that he has reason to believe may contribute more than its fair share of air pollutants, to request additional information. Air quality standard assessments, specific modeling assessments. He can choose between the type of modeling air quality assessments that he requires of the facility.
Okay, and because I'm going to stay consistent with where I've always been, is with this substitute, are we still opened up to possible litigation? And I'm not talking about locally, I'm talking about federally. And does federal EPA actually still mandate all of this? Or how does this work with regards to federal and state and then local if this passes?
Two separate questions. In terms of how this works with federal and state provision, the EPA delegates to the states the ability to regulate the state's own air quality if they choose. And if they choose to do that, then they submit to the EPA a state implementation plan, or SIP. The states, in turn, can turn to their local jurisdictions, their counties, and say, do you want to regulate your own air quality? And 4 counties in Tennessee have done that. And they do that by sending to the state a certificate of exemption, which outlines what you're going to regulate and your specific regulations. Our SIP in Tennessee specifically cites the code section 1056, and that's on the books now. If this ordinance passes, you will be adding these 2 new provisions, the health director being able to ask for additional information from an applicant and the zoning code compliance. If that goes into effect, the question then is it preempted? What I think you'll hear is that before there is any preemption effect, it has to be approved by the state air pollution control board. So that's a significant hurdle after tonight. And then after that, it has to be approved by the EPA before it would be locally and federally enforceable. In terms of if that passes, then are we subject to litigation? Possibly, but then we'd have the state and feds on our side. But the 2 theories that they might pursue, number 1 would be a dormant commerce clause claim. We are not to interfere with interstate commerce inappropriately, and if we do, we're subject to injunctive relief. We could also be, the second theory might be a Section 1983 claim. Any deprivation of somebody's rights by color of state law can lead to litigation in which they could pursue, among other claims, a claim for attorney's fees. After tonight, regardless, this has to go through 2 significant hurdles: state approval by the Air Pollution Control Board and EPA approval.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Councilor Mina Johnson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. It's getting late, so I will make it brief. Just want to thank lead sponsor, Councilmember Bettany, his hard work. I mean, the first time when it's originally introduced, it gives us, lots of heartburn. But after his hard work and everything, and we have in our health department feels fine. So I ask your support. I am so honored to be a co-sponsor of the bill as well. Thank you.
Councilman O'Connell.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I'm not actually sure if this is this is probably a question most appropriately directed to Mr. Jamison. So looking at the chronology of this, I would say even before joining this body, I had a strong sense from the people of Nashville that we did not want such compressor stations in residential areas through the work of former council member Lionel Matthews. And so we now have his bill, this bill, and a resolution introduced tonight. Is it possible to just get analysis of the regulatory impact of those 3 items? Because I'm just trying to figure out where this train is heading and how much more we're going to comment on the lack of interest in having these things come into residential areas in Nashville.
Are you asking for that tonight?
I mean, we got a pretty good summary from Mr. Jamison on just this one. If it's going to take 30 minutes, then I guess I can.
We have 15 minutes left today.
Okay, if we can, does our council think he can do this in 5 minutes or less?
I can do it in 30 seconds.
Let's do it.
Lionel Matthews' bill that was passed in 2015 specifically required natural gas compressor stations, if applied, to be within an industrially zoned district. Councilman Bedney's bill doesn't mention, the ordinance doesn't mention natural gas compressor stations. It simply states that these facilities of any type have to meet the underlying zoning requirement. It doesn't mention industrial zoning. It just has to be appropriately zoned. That may have been 35 seconds.
Councilman Elrod.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. First of all, I want to commend Councilman Bedney for making a heartburn bill a little bit better. So thank you, Councilman Bedney. But because I like spitting in the wind tonight, I'm going to go ahead and speak for a few minutes, another hopefully 30 seconds. I just have a concern of unintended consequences, and probably the biggest one is a state legislative action or action by the Air Quality Board on a state level. I think proven through several things that Metro has done before our time on the council, that the state legislature may take some what they believe is corrective action, and I believe I'm afraid of what the unintended consequence would be is that Metro would lose in total all of its air quality control. And while gas compression stations can be a pollutant, 90% of the pollutants in Nashville are mobile. That's cars, tractors, construction equipment, weed eaters, lawnmowers, and so to try to get a handle on gas compression stations, we may lose the ability to regulate 90% of our air pollutants. And also, so I know Councilman Bednay says this is not to stop these compression stations, and I believe him. But however, there are I think some folks with some false hope, because the first section just requires more information, and then the second provision, I'm not sure what the timeline will be as far as days, weeks, or months, but to go through a state process and then a federal process, that may be, I would imagine, at minimum months, maybe even more than 12 months, and so that would then not affect the two compressor stations that are potentially coming to Metro. So I just wanted to share those. Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor.
Councilor Lady Henderson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Mr. Jamison, can you clarify as to zoning code compliance, what that means, and does that relate to former Councilman Matthews' bill saying that these must be in industrial zoning, and what the potential implications are there if we're saying these can't be here? Well, then where will they be, and kind of from a zoning perspective, can you speak to that? Thank you.
Right, so if you take it in conjunction with then Councilman Matthews' bill, a natural gas compressor station would have to be in an industrially zoned area. What we tried to get, and unfortunately could not get, was a dual map that outlined all of the natural gas lines that were susceptible to attachment of a natural gas compressor station over the zoning code to see what volume of pipeline complies with that. We just could not get that. We talked to the Tennessee Regulatory Agency and Metro Planning, and unfortunately nobody has the dual map that provides that. But bottom line, if you're talking about natural gas compression stations, if this passes and is approved at the two levels, state and federal, then when it comes time to deal with natural gas compression stations specifically, they'd have to be in industrially zoned areas.
Thus, the applicant, which would request to rezone land to industrial, or they could only seek out existing industrial zone land, which may or may not be along the path of the pipeline.
Right, both options. If they need it to be in a location that's not consistently zoned with what they would need, they would presumably request a rezone, and that option is available. That's not foreclosed by this ordinance.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Mendez.
Thanks. I think sometimes the legal explanations get maybe a little complicated. Bottom line is, this is one of the few situations where our federal Congress did something relatively smart. They contemplated this exact situation. This is not a situation where the federal law automatically preempts everything. The federal government set up a situation where the EPA could outsource to a state regulating air pollution control standards, and states could outsource to local governments. In each situation, there's a check and balance on the system. If a local government wanted to add something that was simply inappropriate according to the EPA can say no. If a local government wants to add a regulation that the state doesn't like, there's already a mechanism in place for the state to say no. There should be very little or no risk of the state doing something different or new. There is already a well-established mechanism. if we pass this, when we pass this tonight, it will go to the existing state air pollution control board under existing regulations, and they will consider it. If they adopt it, then it goes on to the EPA. If the EPA adopts it, then we'll never be in a fight with the state standing alone. We'll be standing with the EPA and the state government. If either the EPA or the state say no to the thing, then this, when we pass this, it's dead in the water and it has no effect. This is in order to be in the ball game, to see whether it'll be part of the federal regulatory scheme. We need to pass it and let it go up the well-established existing path to the state to see whether they say yay or nay on it. So I would urge us to adopt this.
Councilman Swope.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Councilman Bedney, fabulous job on all this. I know you've spent considerable time tweaking this down to, as Councilman Elrod said, less painful. And as Councilman Elrod almost alluded to, you almost asked this question, and I've got to, just so that the people that have been sitting here for 6.5 hours with us can hear the answer to this. And Counselor, I'm hoping this is a yes or no question. This bill does not stop the gas compression stations in Jolton or in Cane Ridge, does it?
It certainly doesn't tonight, not this year, and it has no effect locally or federally until it's approved at the state and federal level.
Thank you.
Councilman Sledge.
Previous question.
Previous question, all in favor? Opposed? We're on the substitutes. There is a motion to approve on third and final reading. We have had, it's clear we will have no votes. Madam Clerk, will you open the machine?
I saw you weren't coming up. Okay.
Everybody. Madam Clerk, will you close the machine and tally the vote?
There it is. I have 25 for, 3 against, 6 abstentions.
Motion carries. Appreciate your patience. Thanks for sticking with us tonight. You are free to go. BL 2016-240, Council Lady Allen, Elrod, and others, allows the Director of the Department of Public Works to adopt rules and standards to protect bicycle and pedestrian safety and accessibility in the vicinity of an excavation or obstruction permit, and to require a temporary traffic control plan to be submitted by certain applicants for that purpose. Council Lady Allen. Council Lady Allen. 240.
Thank you. I would like to move for one meeting deferral with a brief explanation.
Moved and properly seconded.
Thank you. I had a good meeting with members of the contracting community, and I've agreed to meet with them this week to do some further refinements. They will probably be changes that we make to the regulation, which I think I can do without actually having to do any kind of late amendments or whatever. But I have, in a show of good faith, offered to wait one more meeting before I pass this on final reading. So one meeting deferral, please.
Councilor Gilmore.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I just was wondering if Councilmember Allen could share with us when that meeting will be and what time.
I am still waiting to hear back from the working group that the ABC put together with me, but we are, I believe it will be next Wednesday at 8, but I will need to confirm that with you. And you're welcome to come as long as we make sure that we notice it ahead of time. Thank you.
If you could let your colleagues know, we'd appreciate that. There's a motion to defer one meeting. It's properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2016-258. Councilman O'Connell, Pridemore, and Allen. Authorizes the conveyance of Metro government's interest in property located at 225 Polk Avenue. Councilman O'Connell.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. With all committee reports in, I will move approval.
Moved and properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Bill 2016-259, Shulman, Potts, and Elrod requires the Metro Transit Authority to provide the Metro Council a comprehensive mass transit plan for Nashville and Davidson County no later than December 31, 2016. Councilman Shulman.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. All reports are in. Move for approval.
Moved and properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2016-260, Councilman Shulman, readopts the Metro Code, including supplemental and replacement pages containing certain ordinances of a general and permanent nature enacted on or before April 20th, 2016. Councilman Shulman.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. All reports are in. Move for approval.
Moved and properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2016-261, Councilman Syracuse, Allen, and Elrod abandons an existing sewer main and easement and accepts one new sewer manhole assembly and easement for property located at 420 Donaldson Pike. Councilman Syracuse.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. All committee reports in. I move approval.
Moved and properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2016-262, Council Lady Mina Johnson, Allen, and Elrod abandons an existing sewer main and easement and accepts a new sewer main and easement for properties located at 800 and 802 Marquette Drive. Council Lady Johnson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. All the reports are in. I would like to move approval, please.
Moved and properly seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2016-263, Councilman O'Connell, Allen, and Elrod abandons easement rights within the right-of-way of alley number 160 for properties located at 710 and 706 Division Street. Councilman O'Connell.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Committee reports in. I will move approval.
Moved and properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2016-264, Councilman Sledge, Pridemore, and Elrod authorizes the Metro Department of Water and Sewerage Services to provide public water service improvements for proposed development as well as other existing properties in the area. Councilman Sledge.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Move for final approval.
Second. Moved and properly seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Let's see, tick-tock, tick-tock. It looks like it's 12 o'clock on the dot. Happy birthday, Council Lady Roberts. You know we dragged the meeting out this long just so we could say happy birthday. Happy birthday. Yeah. Otherwise, we have you to blame. Councilman Swope.
Nope, that's exactly what I was going to do.
Without a motion to adjourn? Moved and properly seconded. All in favor? You're adjourned.